Hello, everyone. So today we have a very interesting guest. I really want to learn about Marie's experience with the apprenticeship program currently at Accenture. But just in general, can you give me like a quick introduction about yourself, like maybe your background, your hobbies, and just in general, whatever you want?
Sure. So thanks for having me, Christine. My name is Mari Taksa. I live in Houston, Texas, born and raised. Um, my background is interesting. So I worked in nonprofit fundraising for a little over 5 years. And when you work in nonprofit, you end up wearing a lot of hats. You're usually on a really small team. So I did everything from like event production, kind of administrative things, to going and asking someone for $1 million, right? So it was really varied. The way that I kind of pitched it when I was applying to apprenticeship programs was I did business development, which is essentially what nonprofit is. But after the pandemic hit, I'm married. I have a 5-year-old, and so that happened. I got totally spooked and kept him home from his pre-K year of school. And I had a great time. I mean, best year of my life, all things considered. Like, we had a great time in our home safely. But it was a really great bonding time. And I loved being a stay-at-home mom. I love all things like cooking and homemaking, things like that. But my brain got really bored. I've always wanted to do something more. I could not just do that. There needed to be something else. Like, I don't know if you can see, like, I bought this piano. I don't know how to play piano. Like, I know we all went a little COVID crazy, but I really, So I said, what do I want to do? I was frustrated in the nonprofit field. It's a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of people, and very little measurable impact. And so I said, what can I do there? Long story short, I ended up going to a coding boot camp. I thought that would be a good skill for whatever I wanted to do. And, just a few months later, ended up as a data engineer associate at Accenture within strategy and consulting.
That's great. So I just want to kind of clarify this as well. Like, you didn't go to college, you just went straight to doing nonprofit funding?
So I went to college, but I didn't finish. So I was a first generation college student. My parents didn't go to college. I was raised by a single mom, very low income, very little, it was a very chaotic kind of childhood, very little emphasis on education. I was definitely a smart kid, but I never really gained like the executive functioning skills to do well in school. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to kind of organize my life to do well in school. So I was a smart kid. I did okay in school. I got into a really good school, actually. I went to Reed College in Portland, Oregon. It's a fabulous school, a big focus on like classics and kind of Socratic method learning. And I only spent a year there because I just completely bombed it. Like, I had no idea how to study. I had just gotten by being pretty smart, to be very humble. Like, I had gotten by okay, but I just couldn't do it. And the stress, and that first year in college was when I realized that something was different about the way I had been raised versus everyone else. My friends in college, like, went to boarding school and their parents came up every weekend. And I was like, oh God. So I ended up leaving, and I needed to work to survive. Like, I had to pay rent. I had to feed myself. So I tried to go to school back in Houston at the University of Houston. And I just couldn't do work and school at the same time. I was very scrappy. I started doing just like little things here and there wherever I could make the most money. So I did like social media consulting because it was 2010 at this point, and a lot of small businesses hadn't really figured out how to use Facebook. So I made them think I was a lot smarter than I was, and kind of built on that. But I needed to make money, and I did okay. Like, I did fine. I found my little niche. I think I've always been like a people person, connector. I have a good intuition with people and with seeing the big picture of a problem. And it's funny, I would always I knew what management consulting was. And, it's a cultural thing. There's jokes about it. It's in TV shows, about it. And I always thought that sounds really cool. I would love to be the person who knows how to do that, who knows. And I didn't understand anything about the intricacies of the industry, but it was always there, And at one point I even thought, when I was working in nonprofit and I wanted to get out, I even thought I could work in business development in one of these firms. And I would try to apply to jobs that I was totally qualified for. Would have been great at, for the record, but I didn't have a college degree. So I couldn't even be the business development admin at, Accenture, McKinsey, whatever. So I didn't finish college, eventually, met my husband pretty young. I had my son at 25. So I was like, okay, we're going to call it. I'm not going to go back to college. We're doing fine. My husband's successful. It just wasn't going to be in the cards. But it just, I got to the point where COVID insanity was making me crazy. I was not going to go back to work in nonprofit where I was so underpaid and so undervalued and so bored. And so I found this coding bootcamp, and it ended up being a great fit. I could get a great education, pretty small amount of time, and it worked out, and here we are.
That's amazing. I'm actually so curious, but why a coding bootcamp? Was it just you were already interested in technology, or you thought maybe oh, everyone's been doing it, so why don't I?
So I figured I've always been a problem solver. I love to tinker with things. I love to solve problems. And I figure any next big thing is going to come from tech.
Okay.
And that seemed like a way to, get some sort of certification, credibility, something. And the boot camp I went to, Flatiron, has a pretty good, actually a pretty amazing career services department. So I figured if they could get me the connection, I could take it from there.
Yeah. Is that how you found out about the Accenture Apprenticeship program?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
Accenture has hired a lot of Flatiron grads in the past for this apprenticeship program.
That's great.
I believe one of the stipulations of going into this program is that you don't have a college degree. So there's a big focus within the company of bringing in folks who either need to be reskilled or, have those diverse perspectives and experiences that bring a lot of value to a company, but they are facing that barrier to entry. And from what I remember, obviously I'm not speaking on behalf of the company, but from what I remember, they're really growing this apprenticeship program in just huge numbers. And someone that I was on a call with during orientation who's really a champion of the program, said, she can't wait to see someone who came in through the apprenticeship program become an MD one day. She really feels like that. And so that was really empowering,
Yeah.
I remember applying to jobs in nonprofit, just trying to find something marginally better. And once it came out that I didn't finish college, they were like, I'm sorry, we can't hire you to fundraise. And I said, I just got so frustrated by the end of it that I was asking people and I would get to third round interviews. I mean, they just never questioned it, which is another, issue overall.
Yeah.
But, I got so frustrated. I was like, okay, so let's say I had a BFA in dance. What difference does that make?
Yeah.
Who is making this rule? You are it was a museum, actually. I won't say who, but it was an independent museum. And I was like, you are in charge. You might have a board chair who would need to approve, but who cares? Who is the one making this rule? You are hurting yourself here. You think I'm good for this job. So it was so frustrating. And so actually, when I found out that no one in this program has a college degree, I was floored. I just instantly felt like I don't have to hide that part of myself anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not really ashamed of it anymore. I mean, I'm 30 years old. I've had time to process this, right? I'm not ashamed of it anymore, but it felt really good to interact with these other people who are so smart and so driven and so valuable to any company, and know that we're all in the same boat. So that was really nice. But to answer your question, so Accenture and Flatiron have worked together in the past. They've brought a lot of people on, and I got an email. I graduated October 8th of 2021. I got an email from them maybe a couple of weeks later, just from employee partnerships, saying that they wanted to hire some more grads from Flatiron and to apply. I wanted to stay in Houston. They have a lot of opportunities across the country, but I needed to stay in Texas because my husband is an attorney and has a bar certification here. We can't easily hop around, So the option for software engineering, which is my kind of specialty from bootcamp, was actually going to be either in Austin or San Antonio. But the applied intelligence practice that I'm a part of is in Houston, where we live. And they were like, no problem. Great, come in.
Nice.
They're really interested in what you can do and what you can learn. More than what you've been certified or skilled to do so far. So I ended up in applied intelligence here in Houston, Texas.
That's great. So how exactly was the application / interview process? Was it just that you applied and was there some kind of career fair, or you just applied online and then right there you got invited for an interview?
Sure. So I got the email from Flatiron Career Services. I know that when a boot camp has these partnerships with companies, they'll kind of flag your application to them. Nice. To give it that seal of approval, which is again, why I wanted to do a boot camp or something of some kind, just to help me get in the door. But other than that, I did the regular application process online. It was fairly simple, basic resume. I don't even think there was a cover letter involved. And then I spoke to a recruiter a couple of days later. We just talked about my experience and why I wanted to career pivot, what I was looking for in an apprenticeship. She shared some details about the program and kind of, it was a little vague at first. I wasn't really sure because, again, brand new to the consulting industry, brand new to tech. So there were a lot of questions about, hey, I don't know any of the languages that y'all use. Is that going to be a problem? And she kept saying no, it's really not an issue. We just want to find the best people, which I've heard so many times over and over at Accenture so far. It's all about people. So I did that quick screening interview with a recruiter. She, that day at the end of the conversation, invited me to a 2-part next round interview, which was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. Okay. And then maybe a few days before that, I got some details about what that interview would entail. So the first part, and this was a long 2-part interview. It was I want to say maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then a short break, and then the same thing on the other end. The first one, I was tasked with preparing a short presentation about a new technology that I was not familiar with and how it could be applied to some sort of sector. So it was very open. I think they were screening for your ability to learn things quickly, speak confidently about them, and have some kind of understanding about what consulting is. And so I just did some research. I went on YouTube. I looked at some very basic consulting slide decks, tried to understand those. I tried to learn about natural language processing, and I put it in a healthcare setting. So came up with a few applications of that and talked about it. I practiced a lot. That part went really well. I talked to a guy who I think was in Puerto Rico or Costa Rica, which was my first sign that I would love the company, because he's yeah, I'm based in so-and-so, but I'm out here for a little while enjoying my family. So that was fun. And then short break, and then another really long conversation with a senior manager who's now my like project lead.
Okay.
Just
was that by coincidence, or they did that like that?
I don't know. I'm really not sure. I want to ask, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of have a feel. We'll get to that. I don't know. So I had a conversation with her. We did the basic, like, tell me about a time when you blah, blah, blah questions. She pointed out that the way that Accenture does hiring, there are these specific questions they ask, and they enter in your answers in a way that takes out any like identifying information so that an objective panel can review them, which I really loved.
Okay.
Because, you know, as I'm very open about the fact that I'm a mom and that's always going to be first in my life. And, you know, it can be scary to be proud of who you are in an interview, without worrying that it's going to affect your chances negatively. But she really assured me, and everybody said this throughout the whole process, that it was totally objective. They want the best people, no matter who you are. So that was that. And then I found out from the recruiter a couple of weeks later, and and then life changed.
Like, it doesn't seem like they're asking any IQ questions or like, tell me about a time from college. It's just like very open-ended and basically skills that you could learn outside of college too. So that's perfectly great. And I love the objective part where if you were like a mother, like they probably wouldn't have bias. Honestly, I thought that'd be cool. Like if you were to say that you're a mother, like I would be like, that's even better.
Right.
That sounds really cool. So in that case, like, did you have other apprenticeship programs like you were pursuing, or this one was the one like you definitely wanted?
Yeah. So I was, so it all happened really quickly. I graduated October 8th, and I got my like verbal offer December 8th. So 2 months of really intense job hunting, and 2 months sounds so short in retrospect, but it felt like an entire year. It felt so long. It was so stressful. I mean, so I was in the interview process with a lot of companies. There was one tech company, not consulting, that I was pretty far along with for their apprenticeship program. But as I had interviews with them, I was asking questions about like, how many women are in this program? How many women are in your company? What does it look like for minorities? And like, they just had no interest.
Wow.
They didn't even have like a canned answer that was obviously fake. They were just like, yeah, we have like 20% women. And like, if that's the answer they're giving, it's actually much lower, right? It was pathetic. It was pathetic. But they wanted to pay me a lot more. And I was like, cool. So I exited with them. I was like, we're not doing this. I can't, I don't have time for that. And then I was pretty far along with a big social media company in their apprenticeship program. And unfortunately, they are not totally remote. They want people to move to the Bay Area and be there.
Oh, wow.
And because I don't have a college degree, to enter their apprenticeship program, I would have to stay in that program for the number of years of college I needed to complete, and stay at a very low salary range.
Wow.
And I said, it was a great opportunity. I mean, it would have, I think for someone without kids, single, flexible, absolutely, they would thrive and be making, you know, 200K in a few years, but I couldn't uproot my family to do that. And I also, it's 2022. I don't want to be in an office every day.
Also, like low salary in Bay Area, like that's just a recipe for disaster anyways.
I know. And I was, and I said, you know, we're still in a pandemic. Like, is there some flexibility here? I don't want to go into an office right now. And they said, you have to be ready to move at the drop of a hat. Like when we go back to the office, you need to be there the next day. So you should move. It was a mess. So overall, I just had the best feeling from Accenture. Everyone was really, it just seemed organized. It seemed really genuine. And I think consulting is a great fit for just my personality and my interests.
Yep.
I wanted to work in a lot of different industries to learn more about just business in general, and get those different perspectives. So it was kismet. It was meant to be. And I'm glad I ended up here.
I'm glad you did. So actually, I did see that you were like a data engineering associate. Like, did you get to choose where you wanted to go, or did they choose based off of your background, or in general, like maybe even your case?
So it's really interesting. So within the apprenticeship program, and I didn't know this until I got there, within the apprenticeship program, there are a few buckets that you can go into. So you can be a technology apprentice, you can be a strategy and consulting apprentice, or you can be, I think there's a couple others like project management or something like that, more on the non-technical, non-strategy side. Within my group of about 68, the vast majority are technology apprentices. There are 5 strategy and consulting apprentices. I'm one of those. And then I think there's maybe 1, 2, 3 project management ones. I had no idea that I was not, well, I knew I was hired into strategy and consulting, but I assumed everyone was. And then when I got to orientation, I found out a lot of people are on the technology side. And so I think those people are more involved with, like, I want to say testing, and I still don't know. I started 3 weeks ago. So I think they're more involved in implementation and testing, QA, things like that. And then strategy and consulting apprentices, even though I am a data engineering associate, I think it's more about understanding the analytics gained from data and helping apply those to business situations, is my impression. I'm still not sure. And then there's the few folks who will go on to product or project management. So, so as far as why I'm data, I think part of it was location. I said that I had a preference to stay in Houston, and that's where the applied intelligence firm has a presence in Texas. So I think that's just how things worked out. But I know there's I've heard from a lot of people that there's always flexibility as you choose your projects, as you choose your own learning, to really move where you want to go. And I've always been really interested in data, so it worked out really well.
Okay. Yeah. So when you said that you knew you were going in for strategy and consulting, like when you applied for the apprenticeship program, they already asked you like where you're most interested in?
So they didn't ask that. And that's what I'm really curious about, is if maybe because of the way that people interviewed, I don't know if it was their
like what's
choice.
The criteria for what it is?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that or a location thing, because applied intelligence is under strategy and consulting. I'm really not sure, but I think I'm going to ask because I'm really curious.
How has your experience been so far? It's like been about 3 to 4 weeks now into the program. Like, how was the orientation? Did you feel like you had all the skills and workshop things that you needed to do to be successful? How did you get staffed and find a team?
Yeah, so I just finished my 3rd week yesterday, and the first 2 weeks were a very general orientation. So and onboarding. So all of the technology, S&C, and project management people were all together. Like I said, about 68 of us, I want to say, all in a Teams meeting. And we just did a lot of learning about Accenture culture, learning we did a lot of slide deck learning, which I wasn't expecting so early on, but we jumped right into it. And they just talked about, I'm trying to remember. I feel it's only been 3 weeks, but it feels like a year ago. We learned about how to tell stories to clients, how to communicate ideas, just kind of a basic, like, here's how the corporate world works bootcamp sort of thing. And what I found really interesting. So I've worked in a professional setting before, but a lot of people in this group have not. So a lot of them worked retail or worked like blue collar jobs and then went to boot camp. Pretty much everyone in my group did. Like all 68 of us, almost all went to a software engineering boot camp or data engineering of some kind. But a lot of folks are coming from non-professional positions. And so the faculty, as they call it, the people who led the training had to be there was a lot of assuring people that like, if they're sick one day, they don't have to call another software engineer to like cover for them. So, and I was a little frustrated by that at first because I was like, don't people know this? And then I really realized that no, people don't know this, that like, they had to say several times, if you have a doctor's appointment, you just go to your doctor's appointment. Like if you, but people really don't know that. And people were so stressed about like what code to use to log their time. And I just think it's such a great opportunity that Accenture is allowing people who have had all of this stress around jobs and working and putting so much energy into things that really don't matter, like a time clock, and assuring them like they value these people for who they are and what they know and what they can do. And you don't have to worry about going to the doctor, you know? So it was a lot of basic onboarding, a lot of talk about Accenture values, kind of the 360 value stuff. Technology, just getting set up with your computer. And then this last week, we split out into groups. So the 5 strategy and consulting people came together with a senior manager who's the one I interviewed with for my second portion. And I think she's our project lead, I want to say, but it's not like the project we were staffed on. It's like our apprentice project lead. I forget the exact word, but she is kind of our mentor throughout all of this, and in the background helps us get staffed on projects, things like that. So this week we did a strategy and consulting 1 week boot camp. We learned Power BI, started getting some info about visuals and learning how to communicate about those. And by the end of the week, we had put together, we did a case study basically and put together a presentation and presented it yesterday. And it was a very stressful week, but it was a lot of fun. And so next week, starting Monday, some of us are staffed on projects, some of us are not. So for this first time, the person over us has circulated our resumes, helped us network a little bit. And so certain people have things lined up. If they're not staffed, they'll do more learning. But they've also started to talk to us about how to get staffed and how to utilize the portal, which is something I had no idea existed. I didn't know this was a thing. Like, what kind of job do you go to and you have to like find work to do, right? Like, just tell me what to do. So we learned about that. That's brand new. And I should start on a project on Monday. And I'm pretty excited. I have no idea what to expect, but like in the best way, you know?
Wow, that's really cool. I really like the fact that they did a lot of reassurance that from the very beginning, if you need to clock in, clock out, going to the doctor's appointment. Honestly, that brings me back to when I worked retail and Staples. And then now I'm like, oh, I'm corporate. I forgot that was something I had to worry about. And to not be paid for it too. So yeah. And I can definitely tell that like, this is a really cool program for everyone. I have a feeling like if we saw everyone's video, they'd be like, oh, I can do that. Like, oh my God.
You absolutely can. Like, that's something that I'm not like, I have no desire to be like an influencer or whatever, but like, I would love just to tell, like, I'm in mom groups on Facebook, you know, like support groups, whatever. And there's so many people who are so smart and so capable, but they have stayed home with their kids for 5 years, or they, you know, there's whatever barrier, and there aren't a lot of opportunities to go into a world where you're well paid and valued, but there are opportunities out there. And I just wish that people knew, and that parents knew, and moms especially knew, that they can do this. And that honestly, my mom voice, organizational skills have been such a great asset in the last 3 weeks. Like, being a mom gives you leadership skills. Like, moms do not waste time. We have like stuff to do. I mean, so many things where they're like repeating things on orientation. I just like turn my camera off and start folding laundry. Like, moms don't waste time. And I wish moms felt more empowered to like own those skills and own those superpowers and feel free and empowered to apply them to these great opportunities. And it's a scary thing to say like, hey, I need to leave at 3:30 every day to pick up my kid. That's like, that's a hard boundary. And I just hope, and I've actually been really impressed that I've seen a fair number of kids with their moms on Zoom meetings because they have like a COVID day or a snow day or whatever. Like one meeting, I think she was an MD. Her like kid was on her lap and like had chocolate all over his face and was like, she's like, analytics are important because she just kept rolling. And I was like, and it's silly, but like, I almost cried. I felt so good because during my boot camp, I would be, trying to have meetings with people, trying to learn. And my 5-year-old, whose bedroom is like right there, would literally come over and be like, can you fix my Lego? My Lego won't come apart. And it just felt so good to see that in leadership. And so I have really tried hard to reach out to people who want to do that and are scared or don't know it's available. So just let them know like it's possible. And if one of us says, I can't make that 8 a.m. meeting because I'm sitting in carpool, but I'll dial in at 8:15 and join you at 8:30, like set those boundaries. And I think it's good for everyone. It's good for kids. It's good for the future.
Yeah, I think that's something that's very important for everyone to learn in consulting. I know a lot of people, they might feel like, oh, but I'm going to be like falling behind, or people are going to think that I'm a slacker, but really it's the other way around. Accenture is going to take whatever you're willing to give. If you don't actually say like, I'm going to be going at 3 p.m. to pick up my kids, no one's going to know that. You have to say that. You have to really step up and mention that to them. But I really find that really interesting because everyone's going to be like, oh, when you work remotely, there's no such thing as like a 9 to 5 anymore. You're going to have to go off work. And then people are going to be like, well, you don't have time to commute anymore. You're stuck at home. But that's not the case. It really is like, you have to be the one that owns your own boundaries. And I always keep on telling people that it is possible to have a work-life balance in consulting. And I really like that Accenture actually encourages that, even with MD with like chocolate all over the side of her face.
Yeah, I feel good about it. And look, I have the privilege to say that like, I wouldn't take a job that didn't allow me to have this work-life balance, but I think it's important for people who do have that privilege to do it and do it really openly, so that people who don't necessarily have that privilege will feel empowered to do it and feel okay doing it and not feel like they're going to lose their job. So, someday when I am in a managerial position, when I am a director, when I am one of those first MDs, I just always want to be that person who like remembers that you got to go pick up your kid. They threw up. You gotta go, and it's okay to like put yourself on mute, say like, I mean, I'm sure that guys do it all the time. And like, nobody questions this when it's a dad because the kid doesn't run to the dad, but like guys will, mute all the time to like check a score or whatever. And I feel like it's okay to professionally be like, excuse me for a moment, pop over here and like wipe a butt, it's okay. Like it's a real thing. And it's a valuable thing for society. If we're out solving big business problems that always end up affecting humans, like as we were doing this presentation this past week, this case study, some of the feedback we got from the faculty was, remember to connect this to like human impact. If a company doesn't get their medical supplies produced on time, then somebody getting that MRI or who's not able to get that MRI is going to miss this cancer. I don't know how MRIs work, but I think it's important to connect that to like human impact. And when you connect people having work-life balance to human impact, it can help folks understand. Like if my kid has a really great connected mom and he's seeing me do like big girl business things, he's going to respect women more in the future.
Yeah.
And it's all connected. It's all important. And I'm really glad to hear that the company values that. I've felt very valued so far.
That's so inspirational. Honestly, I really think you should become a momfluencer. Definitely go for your dreams. I know like you're like, should I be an influencer? I really think you should, because I could probably speak volumes to a lot of the moms out there.
Oh, thanks. No, I don't want to hawk essential oils though.
All right. So like, speaking of that, like what kind of support network did you have in the program? Did you have, I mean, you did mention your project lead, you mentioned the program itself, like what else did you have? Was there like some kind of people lead or, because you're here for the program for an entire year. So what exactly is the support network for that?
Sure. So I have my like local apprentice champion. I have like a peer mentor. I got emailed basically a whole list of people. I think it's like 5 who are people to reach out to. It's a nice little chart of like, here's who they are, here's their email, here's what you can reach out to them for. And I haven't had time to have meetings with all of them yet, but I have one set up for Monday with like my, I forget what she's called, but I think she's my people lead. Okay. So I think and I'm still not sure exactly what that term means, but I think it's just like my mentor. And she seems really cool. We haven't talked yet, but we're going to chat on Monday. And then someone else reached out to me. So there are definitely a few people. And from what I remember about hearing about the process is that they do their best to connect you with people that, are relevant to your personal, interests and career goals and things like that. So I'm excited to chat with them more. And everyone that I've met has been so nice so far. And I'm a networker, like anyone I'm in a Zoom call with, like I reach out on LinkedIn and, try to say something but everyone's been super nice so far. I went to a meeting yesterday, that we just got invited to like observe, but one of the guys was from Houston and he's a senior manager in my department. So I'm going to reach out on LinkedIn and be like, hey, can we have coffee like outside 10 feet away?
And I know like you haven't started the project yet and you don't have to reveal too much information, but like what exactly is the project that you're doing? Do you happen to know like what you're doing on this project?
No clue. The senior manager sent me like a little chat on Teams and was like, hey, I have something for you. We'll talk next week. So I have no details, and I tried to like go into the portal, the staffing portal to like figure out which role it was, but I can't figure it out. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess like for the program itself, like what advice do you have for anyone who's interested in an apprenticeship program? Like doesn't have to be the Accenture one, could be just any of them in general, in terms of like maybe applying or interviewing or even being in the program itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of people when they leave a software engineering boot camp are really lost about how to find that first job. And it's brutal. There are so many self-taught coders and bootcamp grads and people looking for those junior entry-level positions. It's really competitive. And so I focused my job search mostly on these apprenticeship programs because when you go through a coding bootcamp, there are a lot of things that you don't learn, and it's no fault of theirs. There are just daily like workflow things that you don't know. And so I wanted to find a position that would be willing and openly willing to teach me those things, but also give me access to just a network of people, of opportunities. So I think if you have graduated from a boot camp or if you're self-taught, there is one person in my smaller group who is self-taught. So it is possible. Look for those opportunities. I think that companies are scrounging for people right now who have these skills. The ability to gain the skills is out there. You can get scholarships to boot camps. There's tons of opportunity, but look for those apprenticeship programs and ask questions about how they support you throughout the year. Ask them how many people stay on after the first year, because they've made it very clear to me that they are trying to retain people. They want you to stay and they're going to help you stay. So don't be scared. The way I have always felt about interviews in general is that they're hiring because they need someone.
Yeah.
Right. So why not you? Like take that opportunity, help them solve their problem, and network with people. You know, people want to meet you. You're great. Whatever your thing is, like make it known. You're going to be in a large sea of people. So shout who you are and be really proud of it, and ask a lot of questions. There's no dumb questions, and learn and take those resources, right? Because it's at the end of the day, it's about you growing as a professional and as a person, and ultimately it helps the company too. So it's win-win. Just get out there, do it, try. The worst they can say is no. And if they say no, then that's giving you information that you need to move on to something else. So just do it.
Actually, I was a little bit curious about this. So I know like the apprenticeship program doesn't look for people that have college degrees, but do associate's degree count? Or is it they're just looking for people who don't have bachelor's?
I am not positive. I'm not sure. I know there are a few people who are still in college.
Okay.
And there are a lot of people, and I think most of them are veterans. So maybe they are in the process of getting their degree. So I would think that it's people who have not yet completed a 4-year degree.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my impression.
I think this would open a lot of doors for people who either like couldn't consider a college degree in general, like for financial reasons, or maybe they had to drop out just like you, or just in general, like they probably couldn't get through the program. I think this is like a really cool program in general, like for Accenture or all the others apprenticeship programs out there.
Yeah, it's really great. You know, the college is important, and I'm like, my 5-year-old isn't here, and I always debate, like, do I tell him that I didn't finish college? Like, that's going to be a tough conversation one day, because it is not optional for him. He is going to go to college. I did not work this hard for him to not go. But I think there's so many smart people out there who, for whatever reason, didn't go to college. It's so ungodly expensive. It is hard. And I think people are starting to realize, employers are starting to realize that going to college isn't about knowing the material. It's about so much more than that. I showed up at college by myself with all my stuff, like, and I thought nothing of it. And then I saw everybody coming with their parents moving them in. I like had a bunch of boxes shipped to Oregon from Texas, and then a bunch of suitcases in a taxi from the airport. And I got there and instantly was like, oh, I did this wrong. I didn't know you were supposed to bring your people. I had no idea. So it's little things like that. And like, yes, my college had a program for, you know, supporting first-gen college students, and a lot of people do great in that, but a lot of smart people slip through the cracks, and it's not, I don't know, because they couldn't hack it at 18 years old. I think I'm pretty valuable at 30 years old now.
So now that you're a mother, like, how are you balancing it all out? Like, even from the coding bootcamp from the very beginning, and even from now, like, how are you balancing it out schedule wise, or even responsibilities wise?
It's rough. It's rough. So I stayed at home during the COVID pandemic. I quit my job a few months into it because they wanted me to come back to the office, and I wasn't comfortable doing that in 2020. So, and again, it's another privilege thing. Like, my husband, great job. And, I was able to leave my job and, stay home. And when I entered the boot camp, it was a serious conversation with him of like, I'm going to be busy. And he's a great dad. Look, my husband's a fantastic father, and, really took on a lot more. It was always kind of our, situation that I did more of the cooking, cleaning, whatever. That's just how our relationship worked. But he has taken on a lot more. And our house was just really dirty for 15 weeks, and we ate a lot of fast food, whatever. Like, I let it go during boot camp. It was hard because there was only one other mom in my program. We had like 40-ish people, one other mom. So we were always chatting about like folding laundry during stand up and having to like leave I like left lecture every single day to go pick up my son during summer camp. And I didn't get found out until like, I think the day before summer camp was over. And it was just a lot of juggling. Like I spent most of my weekends, like front loading the information so that I could be interrupted during the week, so that I could leave lecture and not like be missing out on information. It was very stressful. It was very hard, but I said 15 weeks is worth it to change the rest of my life. And now that I have started my job, my husband has shifted his schedule. So I drop off at 7:30 in the morning at school. We also only have one child, which makes it a lot easier, but I drop off first thing in the morning, and then he picks him up on his way home from work. So my husband also goes to work very early in the morning so that he can leave earlier. So we've had to make that change. And you know what? I hired a house cleaner because I can't do it anymore. You know, I figured like paying someone was totally worth that stress being off of me so that I didn't have to spend all my free time cleaning. And I love to cook. I love to make healthy food, but we're eating a lot of Costco lasagna these days. And we just add a salad on the side and it's fine. It's fine. Like I've just had to let go. I don't think of it as lowering my standards. Yeah. I think of it as like increasing my standards for myself. Yeah. And pasta, cheese, and red sauce and a salad is a totally balanced meal. And you know what? You can pick up lunch at Sweet Green too and get a nice salad there. You don't have to like make it yourself.
Yeah. So what has been your experience as a career woman? And you could talk about it like back when you were at a nonprofit or even now as you speak.
Yeah. What has my experience been? I think you learn a lot about people, and I think knowing people's motivation is a really important thing in any field. And ultimately, in most applications, you're going to work with people, and being a people person, understanding motivations, understanding human behavior is really important and has helped me a lot. And I think it becomes a helpful tool in networking and personal development as well. And there can be this temptation to get mixed up in office politics or whatever. You can't have time for it, and focus on what you want to get done. And I don't know if I have like a great answer to that. My experience has been interesting. Actually, one thing I do want to say though is that as people have been talking about their backgrounds during orientation, they'll say, oh, I just worked at Starbucks, or I just was an admin, and this was true during my coding bootcamp too. As people were starting to interview for jobs, they would say, oh, I was just this. I don't really have any professional experience. I just did this. It's like, no, you worked at Starbucks. You dealt with like Karens all day. You worked in a fast-paced environment. You worked under pressure. You memorized 1 million drink recipes. Like, be proud of yourself and look for the accomplishments that you have. One thing that I'm going to try to start doing, I learned about this from someone on TikTok or YouTube or something, making the like brag journal about yourself. So write down all of your accomplishments, write down the things you're proud of, like keep track of that for yourself, but also for your career development, so that you can advocate for what you deserve as you're up for promotions or raises, or even getting a new job.
That's really good advice. I think like even back then, when I was doing my first internship out of college, I was like, oh, I've only just done retail at Staples. And they're like, no, it's not just that. You're dealing with all these like rich moms and everything screaming for the pencils and whatnot. I'm like, okay. And then it really is like, building that brag journal is not even something that even a child should be doing. Like everyone should be doing this at every stage of their lives, like even about not even professional work. It could be about personal life too. It just feels better.
Yeah, absolutely. Confidence is huge. And, I don't blame people who have been in really awful work environments who don't have that confidence, because they've been told for so long that they are just a barista or just a whatever. So I hope people start to realize that they're more than that. I had this like, again, I don't want to be a mom influencer, but on my Instagram, I did a story, and I did a saved story, whatever it's called. And because I got this flyer in the mail, it was an advertisement, and it was something very like misogynistic about how like it was advertising some sort of like kitchen appliance, like for Mother's Day or something. And I just got so mad, and I went on this Instagram rant about like how moms are more, and I like tried to start that hashtag. But moms are more, baristas are more, like you're more than just what people have degraded you for.
Yeah. All right. And we're actually going to be ending this podcast soon, but we got really into this conversation. I usually ask this icebreaker for every single podcast that I have, but if you had all the time in the world, what would you be doing?
Traveling, definitely traveling. Before COVID, we traveled a lot. And just seeing different parts of the world, eating things that are new, experiencing, the different smells of countries. So I would travel a lot and get to know people, because people are incredible and so different, and people's stories are the most interesting thing in the world.
Speaking of travel, like consulting is like known for travel. And I know like technically it's very slow right now because of the pandemic, but when it does kick back up, and let's say the client wants you to travel, like how are you planning on doing that? Are you bringing maybe your kid does need to go to school, so you can't bring your kid, but if it's remote, maybe you could. So like, have you thought about that?
Yeah. I don't think that question gets asked of dads who are in consulting.
Yeah.
He has a perfectly capable other parent here. No, but nobody asks him when he travels for work, like, where's your son? I remember when my son was younger. And like I said, I was 25 when I had him. And I was definitely one of the first of my friend groups to have a kid. And I went to like a party when my son was like, I don't know, 8, 9, maybe even a year old. And it wasn't like a raucous party. It was just, people being 25 and drinking in a house. And I went, and instantly I was like, ooh, I'm too old for this now. I can't do this anymore. But someone said, where's your son? And I was like, at home with my husband asleep, because it's like 9 p.m. Like, who are you to say that? Like, what's wrong with you? And so you know what? If I have to travel, he will stay home, and his dad will adjust his hours, just as I adjusted my day when he would go out of town to travel. But I'm hoping I don't have to travel, just because I'm very comfy in my remote work setup.
Yeah. I'm honestly like getting very comfortable just working from home. Like even I was just traveling like once a month, and even so I was like, I prefer staying at home.
Right. Especially like, I'm part of the Project VR program. So they sent me an Oculus headset, and I'm doing like VR meetings now, and it really
space VR.
Yeah. It feels totally real. So maybe that's the future, but I'm okay with a weekend away once in a while.
Yeah. So now that we're wrapping up, like what is on the horizon for you in 2022? Do you have the rest of the program, but do you have anything else going on outside of that?
Not really. So my son's in kindergarten, so that's a whole new horizon. We're really active in our community. So we're just spending time with people, hanging out on the weekends, folding laundry mostly. I mean, it sounds really it's not very exciting, but I'm excited to just learn more. I want to continue kind of honing my coding skills, working on some projects there. Just enjoying life, getting out, hopefully very safely, more and more.
So where can we find you on social media? And I know like you were potentially becoming a mom influencer. Like what are your goals on that, and how can we support you?
I have like 2 videos on TikTok. They're not very good. I'm on Instagram at Mariziva, Mariziva. And I post a lot of videos of like what I'm making for dinner. And I went on like a long rant about Groundhog Day on my Instagram. So if that's what you're interested in, hit me up.
I'm curious now, like what kind of rant is that? I'm going to your Instagram and check
Go
it
to
out.
my Instagram. It was just actually, it was a story. I didn't save it, but it's just an interesting, it was about explaining Groundhog Day to a kid because they don't understand. Like,
yeah.
What's a big holiday? What's a little holiday? So he was like, Groundhog Day. And Groundhog Day festivities, I know we're running out of time. Groundhog Day festivities start at 3 a.m. and they have fireworks at 6:30 a.m. And that's out of control. Out of control.
I didn't know that, honestly. I just like watch the TV or I Google and be like, oh, did Puxatawny Phil come out? That's all I know.
Right. There's a bunch of lore there. It's very exciting. I'm going to go next year to the whole festival.
All right. Well, I've definitely learned a lot, and I'm really hopeful that everyone that's listening to this has learned a lot. It sounds like an apprenticeship program that everyone can enjoy and benefit from. And I really wish you the best of luck in the program, even though you don't know what your project would be. Like, that's the beauty of it. Like, you're going to be constantly learning and growing.
Thank you. Everyone, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help everyone break into whatever field it is they want to be in.
Thank you so much. And all of our social media is going to be down in the description, and we definitely want to stay connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you.